And this is part 2 of building a hitch for a Massey Ferguson 35. And if you haven't seen the first part, you probably want to go and check that out first. But we're just gonna continue where we left off.
And now for the other hitch, or whatever you call it, that accepts these, whatever it's called. And I'm gonna make it kind of similar, but it will just be a shorter pin up here. And then I'm just gonna have a bar coming out here, so you can slide that out over and lock this ring in place. I don't really know how to make it, but I suppose we'll just figure it out as we go. And well, let's just start with cutting a square tubing. So, got these pieces cut out here, and you didn't see that because my phone's memory got full, but nothing special. I just cut it out, and these I just had to trim down a little on the width, and yeah, nothing special. Just 10mm plate again, which I'm gonna weld together, but I'm gonna do it a little differently when on that piece. I'm gonna put one at the bottom of this plate. Will be kind of hard doing this one-handed, but kind of like that. So this distance between there and there will be about 30mm, and then this plate here, like that, and then this is just gonna come on top of that, kind of like that, sort of. Oh yeah, right. I have to cut out the notch, or cut out the piece right there, and then this will just kind of be like that right there. So, got this welded together here. I think that should be plenty strong enough. At least I hope so. I don't think you're gonna break two 10mm plates like that. Well, I just let that be tacked on for now. But I think it all looks good. I just wanted to check, so it's not like I wanted to remove this or move it back or anything. But I think I will leave it like that. So let's just put a plate in the back here. And then I think I'm gonna put a plate to connect that to the square tubing. And then also plate out here. Now I think the next thing here, that is to make this piece. I'm just gonna slide out here. This is not what I'm gonna use, it's just something to show you. And that's just gonna be sliding out like that, or a bit like that. And this pin is gonna be there. I'm gonna wait for putting this in place till we got this thing in place, because then I can make this to the exact right height. So they are maybe 3 mil from touching each other there. Something like that. And I'm gonna just make this thing pretty well like this is. It will be kind of the same thing. Just gonna start with a 80mm flat bar, and then just the piece, and then a piece on either side and a piece on top. Roll that all together, make sure it slides nice and easy, and then just put it in like that, kind of. And just weld it in place there. And then we have to make some kind of way to move this easily and also lock it in place. But
So we're just gonna put that there. For one of those on either side, one on top, weld that together. And then I think we're gonna make a slot in the middle here, and then just weld a piece. Pretty much, or not a weld actually, I'm gonna bolt it to this so I can pull it out. But anyway, gonna just put a piece up like that. And then you should be able to just pull this piece in and out. But let's start with welding this together anyway. So now it's just to clean it up in there. You can see, especially on that side, on this side there, you can see it's a lot of crap in that corner there. And that's because this gap was a little too big. You can see there it was pretty much no gap. It's not as much. But yeah, just to clean that out. And I do think that the piece should fit. I just have to remove all the splatter and stuff in there.
Oh, look at that. Oh. Perfect. It's not even, you know, it's a little sloppy, but it's not a problem, and it's not too tight at least. And I didn't even have to remove all that in there. It's still left, and it still works just fine. So perfect. And now we can just take this thing and put it in there. Oh, we have to cut these flat part down a little bit so it fits in there. And then we also have to cut out the slot here for this. So I got it cleaned up here a bit, looking pretty good. I can't get in here with the angle grinder, so So let's go and get the die grinder and grind all this areas here. The only thing I'm not super happy with is this plate is kind of angled down a little bit, so it's not lining up with this perfectly. So I don't know. And I thought first to put a plate also over this to just cover this up. Just like I did on this one, but it's really no point of doing it if you're looking from a strength perspective. It's not like it's gonna break or anything, especially not when it's tied up around here and everything. So I think I'll just add a little more weld and grind it out, but
It still fits in here. No, it doesn't.
it almost does though. Look at this. Finally, he finally fits in there. So, I mean, a little sloppy, but not bad at all. I'm really happy with that. Slides nice and free. Oh, sorry. Slides nice and free in there. Perfect. Just took way too long to get it to fit like that, but anyway. Now, I'm not gonna weld anymore on here to make this thing distort this or anything. So I have to do this again. Well, a little welding is fine, but I don't know. Anyway.
And with this thing fitting really well, we can get started on this pin here. And I'm just using a socket to see what it will look like. And I'd like to make this round out here. And also we're gonna drill a hole for the pin. So we'll just start here by marking the center. 30 mil in there, and then just to center this way too. Doesn't need to be perfect, but close is good enough. Well, that's not right. That's not right, is it? We're gonna make this 40 mil. Well, not. That is the center of the pin, but I'm gonna mark 40 mil in if I want to make an 80 mil circle, which this will be. So you can see there. I want to just trace like that. Score a line. Come on. Oh, that'll be good enough. Something like that.
didn't turn out perfectly round. It's kind of weird shape, but it doesn't matter. It's good enough. And now for this pin, I found a 38mm round bar, which I think will be a pretty good size. So we'll use that. And I also found a 38mm drill bit. So just have to drill 39mm drill bit. Anyway, so we'll just drill a hole there and cut a piece of round bar and weld it in place. Alright. Huh. Can't get that in either. So this will work. And that's just an adapter between Moss taper 2 and 4. So it's a lot shorter than the one between, 2 and 3 and then 3 and 4. So we got the hole drilled, and we didn't go. And some reason the drill bit didn't like the last little bit. It's a little inch left right there. Just got super hot too, but whatever. But it doesn't really matter. It's just to take the die grinder and grind it out. For some reason the hole ended up being way off center. So I'm also gonna try to take the die grinder and move the hole a little bit up so it gets more center. I think that's a little too much right there. I want it a little better than that. And also go ahead and bevel it so we got some place for the weld.
So I just got it set back up in the milling machine, and I got a end mill in there, and well, let's just see if we can make this hole a little oval.
So it's far from the nicest hole in the world, but I can center up the pin in this hole now, and it doesn't matter if it's not nice. Just need to be a hole for the pin to go through, and it's just gonna get welded up. So call that absolutely perfect. I think the easiest option of beveling this is just to take the grinder with a pretty worn grinding wheel and just run it like that in there, and it doesn't need to be nice. So just need to be a bevel, so I think that's the easiest way. So let's do that. So I just clamped a piece of angle iron under here, because then I can put that down, and it's flush with the underside of this. And also kind of stand there, and then I'll just have to try to angle it right and get it centered, but oh, let's just weld it up now. So there we go, we got the pin welded on there, looking pretty good I think. And that is just gonna come out like that. And now when we have that pin down, we can start working on, well, we could work on this lock here, but I'm gonna leave that for later. And what we're gonna do now, drill this hole that's gonna go for there, just gonna drill a 20mm hole for a 20mm pin that is gonna hold this in and also the other one. And I have just welded on or in a couple pieces, just like I did on the other one there, to make that a little stronger. So let's get this set up in the mill and then we'll drill some holes. Just put this in there. And I did center punch on the wrong side, so I had to move it. Or mark the other side too. So I got a chuck with a center drill set up here, and I just line it up to that center punch mark. And I suppose while I have that thing in there, I can center drill it a little bit, just to get the drill bit started easier. I'm also just used to line it up easier. And then we'll just drill a pilot hole on this side, and then I'm gonna have to drill with a 13mm drill bit, because that's the smallest one I have that will go all the way through. And then we'll just drill it out to 20mm. We're obviously gonna put this in here. And this is why I waited with drilling the hole in this, because now I can put this in here, drill all the way through, and then I'll make sure that the holes line up in this one and this piece. And when I drilled in this one, or both of these, I'll just take this out and pop the other one in and drill holes in that one too. Let's just pull this out and get the other one in and drill that too. Hope I can get this out. Holy moly. Some chips in there. Huh, that wasn't even all of them. That was most of the chips anyway. So now we got a hole in this. I'm just gonna have to clean that up a bit. On this and that one. Not so good. But I'm just gonna start with the cleaning up all the oil here. And I almost forgot. We still need a hole in here for this. Right there. So yeah, let's start with drilling that. So that will just be a 25mm hole, and I haven't really found a 25mm drill bit. The only one I found is this, right there, but it's kind of weird on the end. But I do have this, 24.75mm, so let's start with this one, and then we maybe can try this, see if we can make it last a little bit. If not, we have a die grinder. In the center here, right there. Oh, you bastard. So we got that hole drilled, and we got cleaned up a bit in here. Just used the milling machine to get rid of some of that splatter. The nut actually sits against the flat bar and not on this splattery crap. but it's still a problem. This thing still doesn't fit. Well, it's like just barely doesn't. And then this 25mm drill bit fits super loosely in the hole that it should be, or is, a little bit smaller than 25mm. So it's clearly not 25mm, even if it says it on it. I don't know what it's about, what is up with that, but anyway, let's just take the die grinder and open it up a little bit. Oopies. And now we can get started on this locking mechanism here, or whatever you want to call it. And well, we'll start with this handle here. I just want a handle so you can just pull in and push in or pull out. And then this one just moves in and out. And the 15, I made it so a little piece of 15mm wide bar fits in there pretty good. A little bit of play, and well, let's just take this thing and cut it down so it's just a little bit higher than this, and then we can, and then also cut it down a little bit on the length or width or whatever it's. So so when this is all the way in there, so when this is all the way in, you move it out all the way to there, or you're gonna cut it down to 3.5 centimeter. This moves to about the middle of the pin here, and then we can just weld a little piece of flat bar out here, and then you get a little handle to pull on, and then we'll just bolt this piece to that. We'll just mark it like this right there. That's the piece we're gonna have. So now this thing just fits in there. Just made it look a little nicer. Also clean that end up a little bit. And then this, just gonna go in like that. Just like that. 2 bolts for there. And then you're just gonna pull that out. Yeah, but anyway, let's get these things welded together there. So this just fits in there. And what we're gonna do now is to drill some holes for this thing so we can bolt it to this piece. So let's just mark around here. And then we can just take this out, put this like that. You see, like that, line it up with the lines right there. And then we'll tack it in place. And this thing just temporarily. So we can, because then we don't need any clamps to hold this down. Then that is in place, in the right place, and then we can just drill holes and whatever we need to do. And well, we don't have to move the clamps around or whatever to hold this in place. That, and we just have to line that up like in there. And now that should be stuck there in the right place.
And if you wonder why I'm starting out with the end mill and not the drill, that's because the surface there is kind of angled, and then if I use the drill bit, it's just gonna walk off because you can't really drill a hole on an angle. So that's why I use the end mill, just to kind of make it flat so the drill bit will go straight in. And first I just drilled through the whole thing with a 5mm drill bit, 5.5 maybe, and then I'm just drilling with 6mm in the top piece here, and that's so we can tap the bottom piece, and then the 6mm bolt can just go through the top piece, if you say like so.
So now we got 2 holes drilled and bored out at least most of this piece to 6mm. And this is what bolt I'm gonna use, or not this one, but the same kind of bolt. So I want to countersink this thing so this whole head fits into that piece right there. But this is just not rigid enough to do it, especially not with a dull end mill. So let's just go ahead and get this out of the chuck, separate these pieces, and then just clamp this in the vise. And I just have to line it back up, but that shouldn't be too bad. It doesn't have to be super accurate either, so. So let's just go and get these holes tapped here. So I did find two of these screws that I'm gonna use. They're just too short for some reason, and it doesn't seem to fit in the 10mm hole that we made. But I think if the ones I bought doesn't fit either, I think the easiest way is just to grind these down a little bit, because I don't have an 11mm end mill or 10.5 or anything. So I think just to take off tiny little bit, that will be the easiest way. I did just find a couple bolts that maybe it's gonna work. At least they are long enough. I just want to see how it works. Oh, we just need to bend this handle up a little bit and probably grind down these welds under here. But I got it stuck. But except that, it seems to work really well. That would be absolutely perfect. But with this handle done, we can start working on this locking mechanism. I just want to be able to pull that out and then just have a pin come in. And I want to make it so it's spring-loaded pin, so you can just pull it out and hold it out with one hand, and then you can just pull this out, and then it will just automatically go into the hole in this thing. So I just got this set up in the mill here, and well, Also center up the drill bit on this piece as good as I can anyway, and got it where I want it. So let's just drill a hole 30 mil from this, so we'll go in 10-15 mil or whatever it was into this, and I'll just move it that way and drill a hole, well, 30 mil in again, but it will be in the same place out here. So then this pin I will put here, so we can lock it in both like that and there, if that makes any sense. But anyway, let's get drilling. I'll just move it all the way that way and drill into that piece again. And then I'm gonna weld a nut like that, because I thought to make kind of like a bolt like this, have a nut on there, and then just make a bolt that I can screw into that nut, and then have a, this is not the right size or anything, but just to see, just so you can understand what I mean, and then have a pin that is going to slide through that and be spring loaded in, so it's pushed in, and you can just pull it out and slide that bar out, and now it just slides in again, and then I can easily remove it and put it in with a, because it's in kind of like a bolt. I hope that made sense, but anyway, you'll see later what I mean. But I want to weld that nut there, but there's nothing to locate it, so I can put it, you know, way off center. So what I thought to do is just to drill a larger hole there, turn down this a little bit, so I get a little kind of a little step here that fits into that hole, so it gets perfectly centered. So let's drill like a 25 millimeter hole or somewhere around there. And there I ruined a pretty much brand new end mill that we got with this milling machine. That's just great. Just because this thing wasn't moved around on me or something stupid. So I think I'll just take the rest of that out with a die grinder. But heavy too. I'm just gonna put 2 nuts on there. The one I'm gonna spin down and one just as a jam nut to lock it in place, because if not it would just spin. That should work perfectly. And then this should just fit in like that, except that it needs a little tapping. What? Let's try a bigger hammer. There we go. And then we can just make a little bolt with a pin inside that can slide in and out and lock this in place. Perfect. So let's just go and get this welded in place. So that turned out pretty nice, I think. Almost looks like a drain plug or something. But I think that should work really well. Hang these up here so we can paint them. And I'm not going to paint these other parts here, like this and the handle and the other stuff. Or I am going to paint it, but not with this paint. I'm just going to spray paint it. It's nice and easy, and also I'm going to make it in a different color, so everything is not just going to be in gray. But we can do it like this. Just pull that out like that and do the same thing. We could just hang it like that, hopefully. That'll be much stronger because I'm not sure these screws actually hold up like that. Oh yeah, probably will. Let's just hang it like this. So I just used some steel wire for these smaller parts here, and yeah, just hooked it like that. I think that should work fine. Got some more plastic on the ground here, and I just cleaned it up. I just took the grinder and grinded every last little bit, and then I took a wire wheel and cleaned up any little soot or whatever that was left, and just gonna wipe it down with some thinner, I think. Get rid of the last grease, and then we're just gonna use some of the paint we have at home. This is Fergie paint, the gray for a TA20, and this is just some gray primer. I think it's some zinc primer or something. And this is not a nice paint job. It's just gonna be to keep these parts from rusting too bad. So I'm just gonna use a brush and brush it on, and it'll be good enough. And when I removed this old hitch, all the bolts were pretty stuck, and I probably wasn't that very careful removing them, which I probably should have been, but I broke a bolt off anyway, so now we're gonna have to try to remove that. And I'm just gonna take a 60 ml washer, weld that to the bolt, and then weld the nut to the washer like that, and then I should hopefully have a new head on that bolt, and well, then we're gonna tap it a little bit, and hopefully it's just gonna spin out of there, but we'll see.
mushroomed the nuts, so I have to get a bigger socket. And look at this. I almost does not believe it, but it seems like it's just coming out. It's not, it's a little tight, but not bad. Just wiggle it back and forth a little bit. That's way easier than I thought. It's definitely coming out of there. I thought this would probably not work, but seems like it did. There we go. I gotta say, that worked pretty good. So, now we can just, well, if I had a tap, I would clean up the holes, but I don't. I don't have the right tap, because these are Imperial bolts. So, it's a 5/8 bolt, and I don't have a tap for that. But, yeah, now it's just to bolt the new Hitch on.
Now we can just go ahead and get this plate bolted on, and I have found some 5/8 bolts. And it's kind of hard to find. It's not that many places that sells Imperial bolts in Sweden, but I found some.
And I hope these fits in here now. Seems to do. Except I'd like to clean up the threads a bit.
And because I don't have a tap, I'm just going to try to use a little wire brush to clean up some of the rust in the threads.
I can get it in there.
Dang it. So I just tried to clean it with this little wire brush, but that didn't work that very well.
Yeah, because it was still tight.
So I just took an old bolt that had the same threads as this bolt, and I just cut a little notch like that, so it's kind of like a tap. And then I just screwed it up in there to try to clear out the threads, and that seemed to work pretty good actually.
Okay, so you can see it kind of gets stuck right there.
I just screw it on in.
Dang it, it doesn't fit still. What the heck? Should fit.
It goes in there pretty easy anyway. So now the bolt goes in all the holes. And it's just gonna go this way. Like that. Actually. And I just found some copper paste here. And I'm just gonna put some of that on here. So next time I'm gonna take this off, it's hopefully not gonna be as stuck at least. And now it's just to bolt on this piece right there. And I'm just gonna put some of this on these bolts too. Oh, gosh, it's heavy. So, there we go, we got that bolted on there. And I think that looks pretty nice. Yeah, I'm really happy with that actually. Turned out pretty great. And then you can see these bolts right there. That's why I wanted to grind them down, but seems like I probably didn't need to do that. Seems to be actually having quite a bit of clearance there. But yeah, it looks pretty nice. And obviously it turns out a little looser than I like, but well, I think it should be good enough anyway. I can just get one of these. Just put it in there, just like that. The only thing is that I just eyeballed the center on this one, and well, it's quite off, but anyway, doesn't really matter that much. Should work just fine. Oh, and now I can just hopefully just put this thing in there. Seems like it goes in there pretty good. I can just get this pin put in there and just lock it in place. That ain't going nowhere. And it's just to put this in, hopefully. But the problem when you're painting, especially when with the brush, it just builds up, just kind of builds up a lot of paint in the holes. So I have to carve that out, and then it fits. Gotta make sure to make this one real tight. There we go. That shouldn't go anywhere. Oh. I'm pretty happy with that. That's for sure. And now the only thing left is to make this locking mechanism here that locks this in place.
And while editing here, I just realized I never actually explained how this locking mechanism kind of gonna work. But it's a little complicated to explain like this, so I'll just show you that when it's done.
So here we got 3 or 4 parts, and this is how it's gonna go together. I made the spring, it's kind of crooked, but it works. So that's just gonna go in there. And then you maybe see this is a lot shorter than it was before, and that's, well, because I thought this bottomed out in the hole there, and I wanted to see it against this bolt head kind of. And then I just grinded and didn't really think about what I was doing and whatever. So now it's really short, but I think it should work anyway. And then that pin is just gonna go in like that. And then we'll still have to make a piece right there that is you're gonna be pulling in. And then nothing turns out perfect because that hole in there was way off centered from the nut or vice versa. But anyway, they didn't line up at all. So when I screwed this in, this pin was gonna go in crooked and was just not that. So I just took the die grinder, made that hole a little bigger in there, and well, now this screws in. You can pull that in and out just like that. You can just move that over. Just like that. It locks in both places. Works pretty darn good, except you can't do it one-handed. Just locks in there. And this has a little more play than I'd like, but it's not really much to do about that. And it's not that much anyway, so it should be just fine. But anyway, let's just make a little something here so we have something to pull onto. So there we go. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it should work anyway. I'll just screw this on there, and oh, stuck, but friggin'. Just gonna have to cut this pin a little shorter. That's much shorter right there. Huh. Alright, goes easy anyway. I think that is pretty nice. Just that this thing is a little tight moving back and forth. Just because I think it's a little paint that makes it a little sticky. But except that, it works really good. And then I got some of these screws. Head, socket, screw. And they are just a little too tight right there. Just a tiny little bit. Have to just take out a little more in there and then it should work. Come on. Stupid. No, but I call that good. I have to just grind out and make that fit perfectly. Just a tiny little bit more, but I think that is pretty good as it is though. Just have to change that a little bit. Should go just like that. Perfect. And almost forgot to put some wrench flats on this thing so we can actually tighten it down. So I just got these painted up there a little quickly yesterday, and I think it turned out pretty decent. It's not the prettiest paint job in the world, but it's just something quick, so it's kind of rust protected. And I just thought to paint this little knob red to add some contrast, maybe. I don't know. Actually turned out pretty nice, I think. Now it's just to put this together. I got the rest of the parts here. And I don't know if I said it, but I just made this spring myself before. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it does springy things. And it seems to work pretty good, actually. And I'm just gonna add a little grease onto this thing to make it slide a little easier. And then just to put this into there, like that. And then it has this little ball bearing there. And I'm just gonna have to put that into there because I made this a little short, and I want this end to bottom out in there, so we can really tighten this down. And now I dropped it. And that is because there's no flange on this bolt here. So that's the only way I can get it to bottom out somewhere and lock it in place. And that's just the problem with tightening this down without ruining it, the whole thing. That is just a little too tight. And this is made for a 14mm wrench, but it's kind of tight, and I think I'm just gonna ruin the paint if I use a 14mm wrench. So I'm gonna try to use an adjustable wrench instead, trying to not destroy the paint, even if it really doesn't matter that much, but yeah. Anyway, hopefully that works. Oh, maybe it worked. It's at least fairly tight now, so that should be good. Call that good enough. I think it looks pretty nice. And hope that it does fit, but even with paint on. And I could grease this up, but I don't know. It kind of slides easy without grease, and I don't know. I don't know. No, I don't. But anyway, let's get this put together here. Oh, there we go. I think that looks pretty nice right there. I'm really happy with that. Yeah, I'm really happy with that. That turned out pretty great. So yeah, now this project is finished. So now we're just gonna go and try them out.
And well, I guess I never really recorded anything to this video, and it's kind of a long time later, many months since I actually made this video. So these have been getting used, the hitches here, quite a bit, so they're kind of beat up and everything. What I can tell you is they work really good. I mean, this one, it can't be much problems with. The other one is a little more complicated, if you say so, but they've been working great. But I thought I'd just show you kind of how they look when they're hooked up to a trailer, I guess you could call it. And I haven't looked at what the last thing I filmed was, so I don't really know where I should start and what I filmed and whatnot, but well, yeah, this just goes in here then, and well, this pin obviously just goes through this hole back in here. Probably already showed you that, but anyway. Yeah, have to just line that up. And yeah, they're just really easy and to change out and everything. The problem here is that the ground is pretty much mud, so this just sinks down the whole time, and that's why I can't back up under there and then just let it down. I have to start with lifting it up first, getting it in place like that. Well, I guess it's not really much to look at. It's pretty much just like any old hitch or ball hitch or whatever you want to call it. It's well, yeah, it's nothing really special, I guess. I think I'm pretty happy, which you can't really see, I guess. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if you can get the perspective on the video here, but the trailer here, the ground is pretty level. That's why I drove it forward here a little bit, but and the trailer is pretty darn level actually now. I think it's actually a little too low, the hitch. Before, the hitch was probably 10 centimeters higher. So the whole trailer was kind of squatted like that, looked kind of dumb. But yeah, this is a lot better. And it also works a lot better with other trailers. It was just kind of way too high. Because before, I don't remember really, but it was about up this high actually, probably. So yeah, and also I've used it a lot, and yeah, it just works great. Anyway, let's get the other one on now. And this is really easy to change out. Just pull the pin out, pull that one out, and put this thing in place. This thing weighs, I gotta weigh it actually. It weighs probably 10 kilos, at least 15 kilos. It's really freaking heavy. But I mean, that kind of means it's robust too, I guess. And yeah, well, this also works. It worked really well. It's kind of a weird style, I guess, how I made this. And actually myself, when I was, well, I guess I haven't really edited the video yet, but kind of looked through it. And I actually kind of started thinking, why didn't I just make a simple hitch? 2 plates like this goes out, and then just a pin through it. So why didn't I just make that? Would be so much easier. But then I realized, why? That is obviously because I want the PTO shaft to go out. And it's going to come out like right, well, I mean the shaft, it's going to come out here. And I want to still be able to take the trailer on and off with a PTO shaft going out here to the back attachment. And then it's going to be here, so I can't have a pin. I mean, I guess I could pull it down, but that's kind of stupid. It's going to fall out and whatnot. So that's why I made this. And also I could make some other latch that goes down, but it's also gets high. I wanted to go low, and I didn't want to go too far down either because of ground clearance. I wanted to still have some ground clearance, so I want to just squeeze it together like that kind of. And this also worked really good. I was kind of scared that this whole that the chili couldn't go down that far kind of, because then it would bind up. Like, I don't know how to show it when I don't have the loose piece here kind of that you've seen before, because now it's on the trailer. Yeah, I don't know what I'm getting at really. It works well anyway. It worked great. I used it a lot really, I guess, which you will see in upcoming videos. For me it's in the past, but for you it's in the future, because I haven't posted any videos really because I'm stupid. Anyway, it works great. Only thing that have happened is that just the other day I was taking the trailer off, and then don't ask me, I dropped the whole trailer on this, so I bent that, but I could just bend that back thankfully, so it works great. And yeah, and actually I think it kind of looks cool and everything. Anyway, enough talking here. Let's just go and get the trailer hooked up. And well, this is just a trailer here, but let's get this hooked up now. And now you may be thinking it would have been really smart to make it kind of a hitch that you could I don't know what you call it, so you can use the lift arms and you drop it down and go underneath of this hook here, like, or pintle hitch, that's what it's called too. Actually, these are research, so I actually know that now. And then you can just lift that up, and then you're kind of hooked up. And I didn't do that because that would be kind of a lot of work and whatever. So, I mean, this was a lot of work too, but yeah. But I actually have another solution that is actually pretty easy to do. So, you just, I should really have some piece of wood to lay this on. That's dumbass. It's heavy too. Well, I guess we'll just do that later then. Usually I don't need to lift that by hand. I can just pull it underneath, but then just do it like that. And then a couple times around there. And then we'll just start the check drop and lift it up. And just so you know, this is usually a million times easier. It's just hard because I'm filming, obviously. But, well, I guess it went okay anyway. You can put this there to next time, so it doesn't have to lay on the ground. That's obviously frozen now. And then to lock it in place, just like that, and this can't jump off. And if you wonder how I put this on when I have the back attachment on, it's actually even easier, because when I have the back attachment on, then I can just use the back attachment to lift the trailer up and then pull it in and, well, hook it on really.
So that's actually really simple, and yeah, it really worked great. I used it decent bit. I mean, not a whole ton, but oh, I'm pretty happy with this. I guess it's not too much to sew driving around with it. I guess you can't really see a whole lot, but actually one thing more is such I could just hook up the back attachment to show you how it looks when the back attachment is hooked up. And here you can maybe see a little better what it looks like. And I have driven with this set up like this quite a bit, and I can say it works really well, that hitch. I'm really happy with that actually. What I say, I'm really happy with that actually. Works really well, and you can also see why I wanted it so low profile and couldn't have a pin going through there, because then it would hit the PTO shaft there. But yeah, well, this is all finished and working great, so thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.